There comes a moment in every person's life when the storms hit harder, the nights grow darker, and the mind begins to wander through the valley of uncertainty. We seek answers, we crave guidance, we hunger for meaning. But what most fail to understand is that the answer has always been there, quiet, consistent, unwavering. It is the principle above all principles, the truth above all truths. Put God first. Success, real success, cannot be built on ambition alone. Talent will not guarantee it. Education cannot buy it, and money cannot preserve it. The foundation must be spiritual, the source must be higher, and the purpose must be greater than self, for anything built outside of divine order is bound to collapse in divine time. Putting God first does not mean abandoning your dreams, it means aligning them. It means asking, does this serve a greater good? Does this elevate more than just me? Is this part of a plan larger than my own desires? When you begin to ask those questions, not out of fear but out of reverence, you step into a new realm of power, the kind of power that doesn't come from man but from the Spirit, and that power, that's the kind that doesn't fade. You've been told that life is about hard work. You've been told it's about grinding, chasing, hustling, and yes, discipline is necessary. Persistence is crucial, but without spiritual order, all the effort in the world becomes misdirected motion. You climb ladders that lean against the wrong wall. You conquer mountains only to find the summit empty because God was not first, you were first, ego was first, approval was first, fear was first, but never God. Now hear this. When God is first, everything else finds its place. Your mind becomes clear. Your energy becomes focused. Your spirit becomes strengthened. And life, instead of being a chaotic sprint toward nowhere, becomes a powerful march toward purpose. That is the difference between a life of noise and a life of meaning. What does it look like to put God first? It looks like rising in the morning and surrendering the day, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. It looks like speaking with integrity, even when lying would be more convenient. It looks like walking away from temptation, not because you're afraid to fail, but because you respect what you've been called to become. It looks like choosing to believe, even when the evidence says you shouldn't. See, when you put God first, your vision expands. You stop chasing validation from people who are just as lost as you once were. You stop comparing your journey to someone else's highlight reel. You begin to understand that delay is not denial, that rejection is often redirection, that the door that closed was not a punishment, but protection. Because God sees the danger around the corner that you can't. And when you put Him first, you begin to trust the process, even when it makes no sense to the natural mind. You must become spiritually aggressive. You must declare, I will not bow to fear, I will not serve confusion, I will not entertain doubt, I will not follow the crowd when I know it's walking in circles. You've been given a conscience for a reason. You've been given a spirit for a reason. They are not accidental. They are antennas. They help you tune into the frequency of the Almighty. But if you clutter that signal with noise, pride, lust, greed, addiction, bitterness, don't be surprised when life feels empty. The soul cannot breathe in toxic air. It cannot thrive on material gain. It craves purpose. It craves truth. It craves God. So ask yourself, have you made God your advisor or your foundation? Do you visit Him only in crisis, or do you walk with Him in the calm? Are you using Him as a backup plan, or trusting Him with the blueprint? There's a difference. One is manipulation, the other is submission, and true power comes through surrender. Putting God first is not passive. It is not weak. It is not lazy. It is the boldest, most radical decision a person can make, because it requires you to kill the false self, the self that wants control, the self that wants applause, the self that wants revenge, the self that wants shortcuts. All of that must die before the real you can live. And here's what happens when you put God first. Peace arrives without explanation. Opportunities appear without striving. People enter your life that align with your mission, and the things that once disturbed you no longer have power, because you're no longer reacting to life. You're being led through life, directed, protected, corrected, elevated. People may not understand you. They may laugh. They may say you're unrealistic, that you're too spiritual, that you should be more practical. But those same people will come back years later and ask, "How did you do it?" And you'll smile, not with arrogance, but with understanding, because they'll never truly grasp that it wasn't you who did it. It was the God you put first. You don't need to be perfect to put God first. You don't need to have it all together. You just need to be willing to turn away from what no longer serves your soul, willing to quiet the world so you can hear that still, small voice, willing to trust when it's easier to panic, willing to keep walking even when the path isn't clear. God doesn't need perfection. He needs permission, permission to guide, permission to refine, permission to lead you into the destiny already written for you, but delayed by your own resistance. You can't fake alignment, you can't fake submission, you can't say God is first, and then move through life as if you are your own savior. It doesn't work, and deep down you know it. But the moment you let go, the moment you stop trying to force everything, the moment you put God back on the throne of your heart, watch what happens. Watch how clarity comes. Watch how burdens lift. Watch how doors open that no man can shut. That's not religion, that's reality. This isn't about superstition. This isn't about fear. This is about divine structure, order, power, favor, peace, vision, all of which come when you place your life under the ultimate authority, not as a servant of circumstance, but as a soldier of purpose. Every great movement begins with alignment. Every transformation begins with surrender. Every legacy begins with obedience, and every truly fulfilled life begins by putting God first. Because when God is first, you can't be last. When God is first, you stop chasing, because what's yours begins to find you. When God is first, you walk with a boldness that the world cannot shake. When God is first, you become unshakable, not because life is easy, but because your foundation is eternal. So today, ask yourself, not just with your lips, but with your decisions, your focus, your time, your energy, is God truly first? Because once He is, everything else will follow. Everything else will rise. Everything else will shift. Everything else will align. Put God first. When you place God first, you stop measuring your worth by results and start measuring it by alignment. You stop asking, "How fast can I get it?" and start asking, "Is this where I'm meant to be?" You stop begging for doors to open and start preparing yourself for what's already on the way. Because when God is leading, delay doesn't mean denial. It means development. It means the foundation is being dug deeper so that the structure can rise higher. It means you're being trained, not punished, tested, not broken, and yet so many live like they've been abandoned, when in fact they're being refined. You feel forgotten, but you're actually being positioned. You feel stuck, but you're being taught how to walk by faith and not by sight. That's what happens when you put God first. You learn that silence is not absence. You understand that stillness is not stagnation. You begin to trust the invisible more than the visible, and that is when you become truly dangerous to the forces of mediocrity, fear, and failure. You see, people often ask, "How do I know it's God?" The answer is simple: peace. Not the peace that comes when everything's going your way, but the kind of peace that makes no sense in the middle of the storm. The kind that says, "I don't know how this will work, but I know who's working." That's the kind of peace that doesn't come from man. That's the kind of peace that comes from putting God first. And here's another truth. When God is first, your standards rise. You no longer tolerate what you used to accept. You no longer lower yourself to stay in rooms where God never sent you. You stop shrinking to fit into conversations that drain your spirit. You stop settling for relationships that suffocate your calling. Because when you walk with God, you begin to understand that your value does not come from who accepts you, but from who assigned you. That's why putting God first is not a moment, it's a mindset. It's not something you do once. It's a daily decision, a commitment, a contract between your soul and your Creator that says, I will not move unless you lead, I will not speak unless you guide, I will not build unless you bless. And that is where real power lies, because most people live life building monuments to themselves, only to find that even the tallest towers fall without a solid foundation. But when you build with God, when every brick is laid in prayer, when every step is ordered by faith, what you create can't be shaken, not by crisis, not by critics, not by time, because it's not sustained by you. It's sustained by the one who never fails. And still we struggle, we doubt, we try to take the wheel again. Why? Because surrender is uncomfortable, because trusting something you can't see feels unnatural. But that's the point. The greatest battles in life are won not by force, but by faith. Not by dominance, but by discipline. Not by control, but by complete release. You cannot rise to greatness by sheer willpower alone. You cannot break generational cycles by reading another book or working harder. You must shift your identity. You must recognize that you were never meant to carry it all. You were never designed to be your own God. There's a reason why worry makes you sick and stress breaks you down, because you were never meant to live disconnected from the source. The source of wisdom, the source of peace, the source of power, the source of purpose, the source of all things good, eternal, and whole, and when that source becomes your starting point, everything changes. Opportunities begin to chase you instead of you chasing them. People begin to respect your presence, not just because of what you say, but because of what you carry, and doors open not because you forced them, but because they were assigned to your name before you ever arrived. That's what divine order looks like. That's what happens when you put God first. This is the key most are missing. They chase strategies, routines, hacks, and habits, but neglect the very root from which those things grow. They polish the outside and leave the inside bankrupt. They project confidence, but live in quiet chaos. Because God is not first, they are, their fears are, their desires are, their need for control is. But when you finally reverse that order, when you finally let go, life begins to flow in ways you could never engineer. And that's the beauty of divine alignment. It's not about effort alone. It's about direction. You can spend your whole life running fast in the wrong direction. You can burn yourself out chasing goals that were never meant to be yours. But one moment of clarity from the Spirit can reroute your entire future. One moment of surrender can save you from years of struggle. One act of obedience can open up doors for your children's children. That's the legacy of those who put God first. Their actions echo beyond this lifetime. Their obedience creates ripple effects. Their faith builds bridges not just for themselves, but for generations, because when God is first, you stop living just for today. You start thinking generationally, eternally. You start investing in things that won't rust. You start choosing purpose over preference, destiny over distraction, calling over comfort, and the beauty of it is that it's available to everyone. Not just the wealthy, not just the educated, not just the privileged. God doesn't look at titles, income, or appearance. He looks at the heart, and the one who says, use me, lead me, shape me, is the one who gets access to a kind of power this world can never offer. Putting God first is the ultimate strategy. It is the secret behind unshakable confidence, unstoppable peace, and undeniable progress. Not because life becomes easier, but because you become stronger. Not in your own strength, but in His. And what happens when you fall? What happens when you forget? What happens when you lose your way, you return, you realign, you repent? And that's the grace of it all. That even when you stray, the moment you come back to putting God first, everything can be restored, the time, the favor, the relationships, the opportunities. What was lost can be found. What was broken can be rebuilt. What was delayed can still be delivered. When you walk with God at the forefront, you stop performing for the crowd. You no longer need to prove yourself to people who were never assigned to understand your vision. You no longer feel the weight of living up to shallow expectations because your validation doesn't come from the outside. It rises from the inside. You are not defined by likes, followers, applause, or promotions. You are defined by obedience, and obedience is a quiet thing, a sacred thing, a powerful thing, because it means you trust the plan even when you don't have the full picture. And here's what separates those who simply exist from those who rise. It's not intellect, it's not talent, it's not opportunity, it's spiritual discipline. It's the decision to show up for your calling even when it's hard. It's the decision to honor what you carry even when no one is watching. It's the decision to say no to good things because you're waiting on God's best. Because when He is first, you learn the difference between a distraction and a direction. You begin to see that not every good thing is a God thing. The world will always try to convince you to put yourself first, your plans, your pleasure, your pride, and for a while it might even seem like it's working. The promotions come, the money flows, the recognition builds. But if God isn't in it, it won't last. It will collapse under the weight of its own ego, because man was never meant to carry glory, only to reflect it. There's a reason why those who put God first seem to glow. It's not makeup, it's not charisma, it's presence, it's peace, it's purpose, and it cannot be faked. You can't manufacture that kind of light. It's something that shines from within. It's something that only develops through fire, through faith, through falling and getting back up again with more conviction than before. This is why you must make a decision daily. Who is leading this life? Is it fear? Is it culture? Is it ego? Or is it God? Because you can't say God is first and still move as if everything depends on you. You can't say God is first and then manipulate outcomes. You can't say God is first and still cling to things that keep you spiritually stuck. Your actions will always reveal your real priorities, and this isn't about rules or religion. It's about relationship. It's about knowing that the one who formed you in the womb knows more about your destiny than you ever will. It's about trusting that your Creator isn't trying to restrict you. He's trying to protect you, trying to prepare you, trying to position you, but He can't do that if He's in second place. Putting God first changes how you see failure. You stop calling it defeat and start calling it redirection. You stop panicking in the process and start praising in the middle, because you've seen it too many times. What looked like loss was really grace. What looked like rejection was really a rescue. What looked like the end was the beginning of something far better, and that kind of faith. It changes everything. It changes how you talk. No more complaining. No more small talk. No more toxic self-speech. Because when God is first, your words have weight. Your words carry creation. Your words align with heaven. You start declaring things before they happen, not because you're arrogant, but because you've learned the power of agreement. You agree with purpose, you agree with vision, you agree with divine timing, and your mouth becomes a tool, not a trap. It changes how you wait. You're no longer pacing the floor wondering when it will happen. You're preparing in private knowing it already has. The moment God assigned it, it was yours. It's just waiting for the appointed time, and because He's first, you trust that timing. You trust that if it hasn't come, it's because it's not ready, or you're not ready. And that kind of maturity brings peace that hustle never could. It changes how you see people. You stop idolizing others and start respecting yourself. You stop chasing connections and start attracting divine alignments. You stop fearing disconnection because you know anything you lose in pursuit of God was never meant to stay, and that's not loss, that's liberation, that's divine clarity. When God is first, you no longer fear the pruning process. You welcome it because you understand that growth doesn't come from comfort. It comes from cutting. It comes from refining. It comes from letting go of what no longer fits the next version of you, the version of you that can carry the blessing without being crushed by it, the version of you that can steward the vision without sabotaging it, the version of you that can lead others because you first learned how to follow, and that following, that obedience, that humility. It makes you unstoppable because now you're not moving in your own strength. You're moving under divine authority. You become a vessel, not just a voice, a channel, not just a speaker, a lighthouse, not just a dreamer. And people will wonder how you keep going, how you keep shining, how you keep rising. You put him first when it's quiet and when it's loud. You put him first when the bills are due and when the account is full. You put him first when the room is full of support and when you're standing alone with only your faith to lean on, because you've learned that God doesn't abandon his own. His timing may not match yours, but his track record is flawless. Every delay has been strategic. Every detour has been protection. Every disappointment has been a doorway to something higher. When God is first, you learn to stop asking, "Why me?" and start declaring, "Prepare me." You stop looking for comfort and start pursuing capacity. Because you understand now, it's not about what you're going through, it's about what you're growing into. And God doesn't elevate those who beg for shortcuts. He elevates those who are faithful in the shadows. The ones who keep showing up. The ones who stay pure when no one's watching. The ones who keep building when the vision hasn't come to pass yet. And that's what separates the average from the anointed. The average stop when they feel tired. The anointed move when God speaks, no matter how tired they are. The average seek applause. The anointed seek alignment. The average want to be seen. The anointed want to serve. And when God is first, you stop chasing what fades and start cultivating what lasts. You become dangerous, not in the worldly sense, but in the spiritual realm, dangerous to doubt, dangerous to distractions, dangerous to anything that tries to pull you off course, because you now operate with authority. You walk into rooms with peace. You speak with clarity. You move with purpose, because you're not relying on hype. You're anchored in truth, not driven by emotions, but grounded in conviction. When God is first, everything becomes clear. You begin to recognize what you used to overlook. You see lessons in every loss. You see favor in the fire. You see purpose in every problem, and that's not positivity, it's power. Power that comes from perspective, power that comes from presence, power that comes from being connected to the one who controls it all. And here's what no one tells you. When you put God first, he puts favor on your name, not because you're perfect, but because you're positioned, positioned to receive, positioned to grow, positioned to influence, not for your glory, but for his. You walk into meetings and things shift. You speak and atmospheres change. You post a message and it touches someone's soul, not because of you, but because he flows through you. You start attracting things that used to exhaust you to chase. People come to you asking for advice, wisdom, prayer, doors open that others knocked on for years, rooms you never qualified for start inviting you in. Why? Because the favor of God doesn't check your resume. It checks your posture, and when your heart posture says God you first, everything else aligns. That's when real abundance begins. Not just financial, but emotional, relational, spiritual. You start waking up with joy, even if everything isn't fixed. You start walking through storms with a steady hand. You start speaking life when others only see death. Because when you're full of God, lack can't live in you. Confusion can't dwell in you. Bitterness can't grow in you. There's no room for it, because he occupies the throne, and make no mistake, putting God first doesn't mean life gets easy. It means you get equipped. It means you walk with wisdom that confounds the world. It means your spirit becomes a thermostat, not a thermometer. You don't just reflect the temperature, you set it. You walk into chaos and bring calm. You enter tension and release truth. You stand where others fall. Not because of you, but because you know who walks with you, And still, there will be moments when the enemy whispers, "It's not working." Moments when fatigue sets in, when prayers seem unanswered, when it feels like you're going backward. That's when you remind yourself, this is not about how it looks, it's about how it's aligned. I don't live by what I see. I live by what he said. And he said, if I seek first the kingdom, all these things will be added. That is the promise you stand on. That is the confidence you carry. That is the fire that keeps you moving when others fold. That is the fire that pushes you to rise early when your body wants to sleep in. That is the fire that compels you to pray when your mind is full of doubt. That is the fire that silences fear with faith, cancels confusion with clarity, and replaces anxiety with authority. Because when God is first, you no longer react, you respond. You no longer panic, you plan with divine instruction. You no longer compete, you create. You don't chase what was never yours. You steward what God has entrusted into your hands. And it's in that stewardship where you begin to see miracles unfold. Not always dramatic, not always loud, but undeniable. You start seeing little confirmations in your day. People show up at the exact time you needed them. An idea drops into your spirit right before you were about to give up. A solution appears after you finally said, God, I surrender. That's not coincidence, that's coordination. That's the invisible hand of God operating in your life because you've made him the cornerstone, not the backup plan. When he is first, you stop putting timelines on your breakthrough. You realize that spiritual timing is different from human timing. God is not in a rush, but he is never late. He's more interested in building the version of you that can handle the blessing than just handing it to you. Because a blessing given too soon is a burden, but a blessing received in season, that's a legacy shift. That's generational change. That's purpose ignited. You see, when you put God first, your life becomes less about performance and more about presence. It becomes less about checking boxes and more about communion. You no longer feel the pressure to impress people because you're impressed daily by the presence of the one who gave you breathe. That awareness changes everything. You begin to carry an atmosphere with you, an inner calm, a divine boldness, a peace that causes others to pause and wonder what you know that they don't. And the answer, you know the source. You don't just know about God, you know God. And when that relationship becomes the center of your life, you begin to operate with a clarity that confuses the world. You make moves that don't make sense on paper, but they make sense in your spirit. You decline what others would beg for. You step out when others would shrink back, because your compass isn't culture, it's calling, and when calling speaks, you move, and yet calling doesn't always look glamorous. Sometimes it looks like silence, like sacrifice, like sowing when you feel like quitting, like standing when your legs are trembling, like giving when you're running low. That's where real faith is born, not in comfort, but in crucible. Not in applause, but in anonymity. And those who put God first learn to love the hidden seasons, because they know that the deeper the roots, the greater the fruit. You stop asking for exposure and start asking for endurance. You stop asking for followers and start asking for favor. You stop asking for recognition and start asking for revelation. Because when God is first, you'd rather be known in heaven than noticed on earth. You'd rather be trusted by God than praised by men. You'd rather walk with the Spirit than run with the crowd. This shift is radical. It breaks you out of the rhythm of mediocrity. It sets you apart. It makes you peculiar. People may not understand you, and that's okay. Because you didn't come to be understood, you came to be obedient. You weren't built to fit in. You were called to stand out, to be a light in a dim world. To be a voice when others are silent, to live by conviction, not consensus. And the cost of putting God first is real. You may lose relationships. You may be misunderstood. You may feel like you're walking against the grain. But what you gain, peace, wisdom, power, purpose, far outweighs anything you'll leave behind, because you're no longer looking back. You're walking forward with a vision rooted in eternity, with your eyes on what matters, with your spirit led, your heart steady, and your soul fed by truth that does not change with the seasons.